contest. Only a gun requirement. Yes. Yes. However, in New York, to enter or land in New York, I'm sure I'm going to test. Okay. Yeah.
No, it's ZT something something.
Exactly. So check.
They're using the name.
No, but the New York one, you have to have it before you land. Otherwise, I think I forgot what it is.
People are just, I want to meet the
Yeah, because I mean, I thought don't have test when you're going back. But I'm told right now, okay, so that's what I heard, that's what he told me. I'm being told right now, I'm being told right now, so my children only just came back. My children only just came back.
We're live, we're live, we're live, we're live. I think there's a phone now.
Referring to the
That's the point.
My mic is
So good evening to everyone. You're welcome to HR Connect 2020. Amidst it all, we still made it. We actually thought of, just postponing and all that, but we decided that as HR practitioners, we needed to be able to face all this disruption and still make a difference. And that's how we had this hybrid session, where we have some of our facilitators right here at site, and then others will join us. Now, for us today, we are privileged to be having 4 very distinguished, astute professionals who are going to be sharing a lot of intel with us. Welcome to everyone. Just for a brief moment, for those of you who know the mantra, we will unmute ourselves, and then what we say, we'll see if you can remember to say it back. So I am a proud practitioner. What do? You change lives. So when I say I am a proud practitioner, you have to respond, I change lives. Are we ready? Okay, so here we go. I am a proud practitioner.
I change lives.
Yes, we change lives. So the HR is the doctor, the HR, the engineer, the HR, the transport manager, the HR, the mother, the HR, the teacher. HR is just everybody's everything. So if you can kindly unmute for me now, we would like to start the session. I'm going to give a minute each or less to my speakers for today to quickly introduce themselves to you. So I'm going to start with Auntie Ruth, Madam Mrs. Ruth Boateng.
Hi, everybody.
Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I've unmuted myself, Cynthia. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, practitioners. I'm Ruth Boateng, and I'm HR Shared Services Manager for Fresenius Medical Care. And I've been a HR veteran for the past 15 years. And prior to that, I dealt with people in schools. So I'm a people's person, put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth, for joining us. We also have Mark, all the way from Kenya. Mark, can you quickly introduce yourself to us, please?
Good evening, everyone. I know it's afternoon in Ghana.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Thank you very much. It is a privilege and an honor to meet the network, although on a virtual basis. My name is Mark Voy. I've been in HR for the last 25 years. I'm the CEO of People Edge Consulting, an HR consultancy firm based here in Nairobi. Otherwise, I've been in HR for...
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
We will be taking our facilitators right here. So we'll start from Kojo.
Yeah, the name is Kojo Edison. I am here representing SHR, Society for Human Resource Management. We're into HR conferences, HR certification, membership. Yeah.
Right. And the man himself, all the way from the US of A, back home, Jeff, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. My name is Jeffrey Obama, and I've been in the HR space in general for about, I would say, 17 years, but I'm more specialized in the L&D space, and I own my own small consulting practice in Columbia, Maryland.
Thank you very much. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you have had a fair view of the people we'll be interacting with. Every one of them has been in HR for years and have a lot of experience to share with us. We want to sincerely apologize to you for the late start. We should do better, and we promise we definitely will do better the next time around. And so to kickstart this whole conversation, we want to understand. So Jeff and Kojo, since you're right here with me, I want to know, could HR have prevented the shockwaves that we actually felt, in the industry within this very pandemic? In your
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. I don't necessarily think HR could have prevented it, but I think HR could have prepared for it, right? So the way I look at it is HR should constantly be looking at continuous improvement. HR should constantly be communicating with, folks like, what do you call those guys?
yes.
Safety, health and safety, etc., technology. HR really should be connected with all these guys for communication and good training and to create awareness overall. But I don't think that HR really would have prevented it, but HR definitely would have done something to mitigate it.
Yeah. In terms of prevention, I mean, this is something that we all organized on. So I don't think HR or any other function per se could have prevented this. However, when you look at HR, you talk about change management. These are people talk about agile and all of that. What it means is you have to be able to move and not be static. So a lot of companies have done well with responding to this pandemic, meaning the HR took a stance and then they were doing a environmental scanning to see what is going on, and they were changing alongside. And there was some HR that took an initial stand and they stuck with it and then it transformed back. But with time, I think generally things have stabilized in terms of response to the COVID, and a lot of organizations seem to have figured it out and they are moving on. But I think where companies are struggling is the customers probably in some cases are still not coming. So then the whole business has to reinvent itself to attract customers.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And Mark, from you, do you think that we failed miserably in mitigating this business disruption due to lack of planning? Or Ruth, you can take this if you are ready for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that brilliant question. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. I would say yes and no. Why would I say yes? HR would have succeeded, or rather would have come out strongly during the pandemic. But I strongly believe that then that would have only happened if HR had a risk-based approach towards management. The situation we have right now is that HR was found flat-footed. We never anticipated this pandemic. However, I would say in future, if we took a risk-based approach towards human capital management, then we will be found in this situation again. Of course, going ahead, then HR must.
Mark, I struggled a bit to hear everything you said, but I'm sure everyone else did hear. Ruth, just to move on, I will take the same question from you. So I want to ask you, what do you think is the critical role of managers and leaders in fostering improved experiences and how to support all the levels of workforce, looking at what we just experienced?
Thank you, Cynthia. I think the role of managers cannot be underestimated. If you think about it, managers from recruitment, hiring, talent acquisition, performance management, succession planning, development, engagement, all involves managers. So the role of the manager cannot be underestimated. In fact, according to statistics, most people leave businesses because of bad managers. And because of that, we need to ensure our managers are trained. They might be professionals, but they might not be people managers. So they should be given the soft skills to, to help support people. And that is why managers are crucial. In fact, I look at the whole employee cycle, and the manager is the cog in the middle of the whole process. So if you have a bad manager, hiring goes wrong, retention goes up, business loses money, profitability goes, you lose clients because there is no good service delivery. And at the center of it is the manager. Could you hear me? Hello? Yeah, and also, if managers are well-trained, they look after the well-being. They implement, they impact the well-being of the people they line manage, and they communicate better. If you think about it, leadership brings down information through communication. If managers are not able to communicate properly what the vision of the business is, people they manage cannot achieve what they need to achieve. If managers are not able to set clear goals and targets, the company does not achieve. If managers are not held accountable, nothing happens. So the role of the manager is quite crucial. And if you have you can have a very good technical person, professional person, but if the soft skills and the management skills of people are not there, they cannot succeed as managers. So it is important that we develop our managers to be able to manage people, not just the workload and not just the processes, but to have the soft skills to manage people. Thank you. And in addition to that, if managers are resilient and well-trained, they are able to pick up things quickly. They are able to plan ahead. They are able to raise issues, escalate issues to senior level, because they are the first point of call to know when things are not going right in the business. And they are the people that will implement any change management that happens. If you think about what we have now, as a manager, you're not looking after the well-being of your employees. You end up not having a resilient workforce. You end up not having an engaged workforce, and it all filters through, and it knocks down on every performance. Any business outcome is hanging on the management being able to do their work. Of course, we're all responsible for our performances and our business outputs, but the managers are the key people that ensure implementation happens, good implementation happens, planning happens, delivery happens. Those are the areas that I will look at. Thank you. Can you still hear me?
Seem to be lost. I can hear you very clearly.
I thought I had lost connection. So moving on then, we spoke about induction, hiring people, inducting people, being creative. The line manager is the first point of call. If a manager doesn't induct people properly into the business, they are not going to thrive, they're not going to settle. So it's important that managers are equipped and they align with the business goals. If managers are not in sync with the vision of the business loses. The manager hires, the manager inducts people, and the manager helps and supports to develop the people. And if you think about it, the people in our businesses are most precious assets. So if the people looking after our most precious assets are not developed to be able to do that, they are not equipped to do that, then the business is in trouble. Hence the importance of equipping managers to be aware of all these things. And the other thing I want to say about managers is them being able to stand for core values. I mentioned well-being. Integrity is another thing. So if a manager cannot lead by example, how are the people they're managing going to be able to excel at what they do? Yeah, thanks. Can I continue? I'm struggling to hear anybody at all.
We can hear you, Ruth.
Okay. Yeah. Going on from induction and development, when people are settled, how do you stretch them? How do you get the best out of them so that they stay within the company? So it's the whole cycle, as I mentioned earlier. People need to be inducted to settle down. They need to be developed to be able to be retained. If your turnover is high, your managers are not retaining people, you're losing money, you're losing business. So we have to be strategic as managers in looking after our people. And we have to be knowledgeable as well. So in as much as the managers are helping to develop the employees, they need to be equipped with the necessary knowledge as well. And then when it gets to the point of, well, people have to leave sometimes, yes, managers are taxed to do, or they are involved in letting people go. How do we do that? How do managers do that? Are we able to let people leave a company with a good vibe that they might even think about coming back to the company? Or do we just let them go, acrimoniously, where our business brand suffers? Because word of mouth is powerful. And it doesn't take the CEO to create a good vibe. It takes the line management, it takes the employees to create the brand. And when at the point of leaving, you can still nurture good branding because people move on. The manager has a lot. The manager has a lot to do.
can log on to the phone so I can tell what the tool is. So the YouTube is a delayed tool. That's not what I need. I need the YouTube live so I understand who is talking, who is not talking. That's possible. Ruth, please, I think that you're having some challenges connecting with us because when I know more, you're still talking, so we're having a little challenge. If you can just, she keeps starting the thing. I'll send her a text. She hasn't checked.
No, you know what? To move out of the meeting and try to connect it.
Then, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Jemole, also. So you're not in Jemole.
The same problem.
Why have you tried this one? Oh, shit. She's speaking with her. No, she's not listening to us. Well, that means the internet is. So when I move on from her, she's still. Then she says her own version. It's a delay. Remove for now. Remove that.
What's the time on the head? Should be around the same time.
UK.
She's not in Ghana.
Center.
But UK, I've been calling UK. So now try. She's now seeing the message. Try and log on, but now I don't see what's just said anyway. I don't think. But at that time she was still talking.
Oh.
Maybe to give somebody and see whether.
Yeah, that's why I said they should log on to another. I already have Zoom. They can't just use mine. You should log on so we can check and see if they had us on. Because how we have to do it. So just a quick check. If you can actually hear me, can you kindly just unmute for a second and let me know if you can hear me? Since we have some technical challenges. So any of you, if you can just unmute. Abigail, you can just unmute, say hi so I know you can hear me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 We can hear you.
Very clearly.
Sure.
Hello, Mark, can you hear me?
Crystal. I can hear you clearly.
Yes, Mark, can you hear me? I see you're smiling. I should think
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now we're trying to just wonder if you had just response to technologies and the systems that we need to put in place to take care of our workforce. Did you hear Jeff when he spoke? If not, I'll have to take him on that again. Mark.
Yes, I can hear you. Hello? 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 You disappeared again. You sound like you're lovely. Now I can hear you.
We apologize sincerely for all these technical challenges.
Not a problem.
So, you know what, we'll take the question again, we'll move on and then we'll come back to it somewhere in the beginning. Right, okay. So, Mark, since you can hear me, I would like to ask you, what you think about employee engagement directly, its direct impact on loyalty and productivity, and the drivers of great employee experience within this period. What have you experienced, in Kenya, for example, in trying to handle this disruption?
Thank you very, very much for that question. Employee engagement is so critical for any organization from a practice perspective.
Yes, I can hear you, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, employee engagement is so critical and it's become. Yes, I did. What I think about the impact of employee engagement on productivity and loyalty, right? Hello? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. So like I was saying, employee engagement is such a critical component within the employment sphere. With or without the COVID-19 pandemic, it is critical in the sense that as HR practitioners, we then are required to put in place mechanisms to ensure that employees feel a sense of belonging to the organization, so that they also know what their individual contribution is towards. I can hear some voices. Am I being heard?
No, we can hear you perfectly. Just go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you.
The other butterfly. I think it's
Because some people have not muted their voices, so I can hear some interferences.
Hey, they said some people have not muted their mic.
Hello?
Hello, Mark.
Thank you. So basically, from an HR perspective or HR practice in view of the
Hello?
Yeah, hello? Are we together?
Yes.
Thank you. In view of the pandemic,
Hear you, right?
thank you. Let me proceed then. In view of the pandemic, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. In view of the COVID pandemic then, there have been various HR challenges. One of them is that employee engagement has taken its lowest ebb. Number two then is that the impact of employee engagement then is very, very high in terms of how then does that then translate to either people being productive or not being productive at all in the workplace. There's definitely been a shift from working within brick and mortar in one office where people are engaging and interacting on a daily basis. The remote work situation then has posed a challenge to the HR practitioner, the employer, and the employee. Ideally, what most organizations are doing from a consultant's perspective, I've been in practice in consulting for 4 years now. We have to encourage the aspect of personalization of employee experience. From the aspect of employee recruitment, onboarding, leadership, and Ruth pointed out certain factors which I may repeat, but from a COVID perspective, how do we, for instance, reset our recruitment procedures? As HR practitioners, then we are being forced to go into what we may call virtual onboarding. Another experience, what we are doing right now, we would have had a conference either in Nairobi or in Ghana, but now we are having that online. Our interactions have really switched. How then does that then impact on employees within the organization, loyalty and productivity? Us as HR practitioners, we need to look at the entire HR cycle from a very, very different spectrum. How do we, for instance, look at the skills that are available? COVID pandemic has taught us a lesson that then critical skills that every employee possesses right now in an organization as important as other skills. How do we then reskill our employees so much that they are ready for the next job? What you may call having a talent management framework that then future-proofs an organization in view of, in the event that we come across such a pandemic in future. We also have a critical role of ensuring that employees' well-being is key. Well-being has now shifted. Initially, when you talked about employee well-being as HR practitioners, I think when you rank it, initially it might have ranked out of 10, it might have ranked number 9 or number 10. But due to COVID, we are saying, how do we social distance? I'm seeing team members there are really social distancing. You are wearing masks. We have never been in such a situation before. But employees then have to switch their mindset and know how to put up with well-being issues. How do we, for instance, also change our policies in relationship to employee well-being, with safety being very, very critical. When it comes to ideas of saying how do employees proceed on leave, how are employees are being allowed to work within the work environment. My family is not available. If they were here, they'll be making noise. How do I handle, for instance, the conference we are attending and ensure that I'm productive within circumstances that have really, really transformed? More importantly, is a question of goal setting. We've been setting goals in an interactive way within, like I mentioned before, within brick and mortar, where an employee, the supervisor and the one being supervised are more or less in the same building. How do we handle this situation within the pandemic scenario? What we are required then to set goals which are realistic, and more importantly, how do we check in on our employees? How do we, for instance, relate to our employees, even in our communication channels? The way we communicate with our colleagues in the office setting is going to really transform. How do we, for instance, send emails to our employees? How do we sound? Are we going to start off by finding out how they are doing? Because this pandemic is affecting everybody in families. We need to look at the individual as a whole individual, as opposed to when they came to work as a single person. So that is critical. Then more importantly, how do we look at the reward aspect? It's common knowledge that now the workplaces are having a hybrid setup. We have certain critical skills that must be in the office setting. There are those skills that must be out of the office. How then do we handle the aspect of total rewards? It's key that then we look at how we have to come up with our reward package that takes care of the hybrid skills and the skills that are available within the organization. Then more importantly, skills development and talent development. I've just mentioned that the skills now are taking a different path altogether. We need to come up then with a talent management framework that looks at the aspect of having an employee with the critical skills, but with emphasis on agility. Can we call on an employee, for instance, to possess certain skills that they didn't possess before COVID and post-COVID, so much so that then we have a bench strength that is more available for deployment as and when we have a pandemic of this nature. Are we together?
Yes.
Thank you.
So much, Mark. That was very well articulated.
Thank you very much.
And exactly what you're talking about is what we're experiencing. In this disruption, you have a lot of technical challenges when you're having to deal with your teams. And because people are working from home and you're trying to connect to them, and you will have practical issues such as what we're having here, trying to connect from the office or different locations. Some individuals may have very good internet connections, others may not. Some will have their kids running around the whole house, and then getting people to be productive has now become quite a challenge. We're having to devise new ways of taking care of that. And so, right from what you said, as being an experience in Kenya, I want to assure you that you are not alone. We are all in the same boat. We're having the same experiences all over. Just all the way from US, Ruth in UK will attest. Kojo myself right here, we will tell you that the experience has been the same across board. Now, to ask Kojo, what practical steps and documentations can we put in place in a time such as this in our organizations? COVID is just one pandemic, it's just one, but going into the future, we don't know what else will hit us. Now, what kind of documentations or what kind of steps do you think we need to put in place as HR practitioners so that we don't have ourselves, back against the wall as we did this time?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a very serious question in the sense that I want to move us one step about HR. When you look at the strategic planning process, you have to take care of risk management. So in risk management, the WHO and the rest of the health organizations have always had pandemics on their books. In other areas, they have the natural disasters on their books. So at the strategic level, organizational level, your risk management has to take care of the known, the unknown unknowns, and so on and so forth. So the unknown unknown is where You don't know when it will happen and you don't know how the impact will be. So if we do that at the organizational level and set some objectives for risk, and then drill it down to all departments, including HR. So in the HR planning itself, there has to be a risk management component to it. I think what is missing now is some people who they have even though the risk management may not have said COVID-19, there was some kind of preparation in place that if something unforeseen happens and disrupt our customers and their demands, or disrupt what our employees and ourselves need, what do we do? And those companies got a shock. It took them a very short time to get it up and running. So what I would say to all HR is start creating these risk management components into your planning. And with all this that is going on, you have to document lessons learned. And the lessons learned will help you to fine-tune your risk management if you already have. But if you didn't have it, you need to learn about risk management because it's clear that it's going to happen. When those who live in the typhoon areas or the hurricane areas or in the heat wave areas, there's always that kind of planning. So HR should involve risk management in this plan and then start documenting some of these things that we do. And with regards to how employees feel, you know, you talk about employee engagement. There's so many facets to it, but I think whatever we've had for employee engagement still holds, except that now the emphasis goes on empathy. Because now, yes, you need to get me engaged a lot of that. My mother got infected, my uncle died, called from COVID. So, yes, we need to do the job, but the situation is different. So, for HR, all these things is how do you train line managers to be more empathetic, to be able to make sure that we can still motivate people to do what they are supposed to do.
Right, yes. Thank you so much. And Jeff, if you would lend your voice to that as well.
Yeah, I fully agree with my Sanders Senior Polio. I think it's absolutely important that risk management plan right from the start, right? HR definitely has to have a component of risk. HR has to be 100% prepared. You'd be surprised that there were so many companies that even though we thought this really hit a lot of companies, there were some companies that really had preparation plans in place.
Absolutely.
Right? So as far as the risk management part of it, I think I fully agree with you. And I also agree with the fact that, you know, like, sorry to hear your situation, but there are a lot of people who suffer some of these things. So this is when I would say HR really needs to put the H in the human resources. So basically what it is that as part of our risk management plan, right, it's important that we train people, we train our leaders to be empathetic. We need to train our leaders to coach people. I mean, I worked on a program, at ARB, where it was all focused on caregiving, understanding that people who come to work have parents at home that they need to take care of, that people who come to work also have kids that they need to take care of. So this is when HR really, really needs to be empathetic. And you'll be surprised that at this point during this pandemic, I think the EQ, that aspect, that feeling quotient is what is really going to keep people loyal, not necessarily their productivity quotient. So as far as everything that's said, I fully agree. And I also say that it should just be, us being a little more, showing a little more empathy and understanding that people have lives outside of the workplace. Also, in addition to us being able to prepare people to coach, I think we also have to start spotting problems because not everybody, the way I look at it is not everybody really is capable, able to share their problems and all. So we need to also coach our employees to spot mental health situations in the workplace. Something as simple as going to a coworker and saying, hey, you don't look yourself today. Is there anything I can do about that, right? That can give you an opportunity to spot what's going on with that person and then transfer that back to your leadership, right? So this is a point where I think everybody should really play a role in making sure that not just mitigating the risk, but also managing it and ensuring that the employees are made whole throughout this process.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And Ruth, if you can quickly lend your voice to that, are there any particular documentations that you think we should prepare for to help us take care of disruptions and pandemics of all types.
Thank you, Cynthia. Something that comes straight to my mind is digitalization, our processes. Now, if your system, your operations are all paper-based, when this pandemic hit, what would you do? So we need to look at our processes and our operational instructions, that if that one person who does analysis all the time in HR, for instance, is not there, is there an SOP in place? Is there an instruction in place that somebody with the ability can pick up and get on with it? And we need to look at looking at streamlining our processes to go digital. You know, onboarding, do we still carry papers around? Do we still sign hard copy contracts? Do we deal with our clientele by shipping around paper copies of stuff? Now, I don't think anybody has a fax machine or uses it that much. We've got DocuSign. So let's start thinking electronic, you know, and thinking electronic, we also need to start thinking about safety, digital safety. If that's the way we're going, we need to think about cybersecurity. So that is what I will add to that. Thank you.
Can I add something, if that's okay, Cynthia? Hello. Hello.
Mark, did you get my question?
No. Yes.
And documentation that as HR people we need to put in place for businesses during disruptions.
Is that related to what Ruth just talked about? Hello? 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 Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. When it comes to documentation, I'm looking at the aspect which still boils down to what my sister Ruth just said. HR then post-pandemic and even during the pandemic period has to look at this as an opportunity for transformation. Why do I say it's an opportunity for transformation? Just like the hospitals, I think within, and I strongly believe that within organizations, we are the frontline fighters, if you like. But then we need to come up with a comprehensive and robust human resource management system and actually shift away from paper-based transactions. Systems that then will be so robust that can give us timely analytics and reports in the following areas which are very, very critical for any organizational survival. And I'm looking at a system that then will enable HR to look at what are the critical skills that are required to be developed within the organization. What are the critical competencies? What are these rare skills that we may require to survive as an organization? Then digitize that. Digitize that so much so that then whenever there's a pandemic of this nature, we can act almost immediately, because out of the analytics that we have in terms of our skills base, our bench strength, for instance, we may react almost immediately because we are moving away from physical interviews, and we can recruit somebody in Japan while we are in Accra or in Nairobi. So how do we then digitize our processes so much so that we have a backup that enables us to crunch data? That data then helps organizations to make decisions in real time. More importantly, then we also have to have systems that can enable us look at what kind of organizational structures are we having at the moment, and how can we more or less seamlessly switch into a new structure without disrupting the business. The aspect of organizational change then is also tied in there, organizational design and organizational change. How do we have records that indicate, for instance, like Ruth pointed about leadership, where they are the cog in the entire wheel. Once you have the wrong leadership, and in HR, we've always said people leave bad leaders, they don't leave organizations. How do we, for instance, have leaders who are agile, who are flexible, leaders who can be resilient, leaders who make decisions almost real time? We need to have records of that nature. Then more importantly also, the kind of culture that an organization is having. How are we measuring the culture that we have? Do we have data? Do we have data on record to show that if our organizational culture should be at 100%, we are at 70, we are 45, we are 25. What do we do immediately so much so that we have a culture that is resilient, is adaptive to change, is future-proof, and then also enables the organization to move forward? Then finally, there's the aspect of EX. It's a nice conference where we are still looking at the employee experience. We must have data on EX. How engaged are these employees? And if they are not engaged, what are the pain points? And I don't want to preempt what we are going to discuss further on the kind of apps that we can have as HR directors or HR leaders that more or less inform us almost immediately the level of employee engagement, and how do we come in as an organization to mitigate employee engagement to ensure productivity, ensure customer loyalty, ensure financial, we are benefiting as an organization in terms of our profit and loss, that the organization has retention of the best employees they can have. So that is also very key. Then if I may mention another thing which is so critical, and like all members are talking about, I've also mentioned earlier, is the future of work. How are we going to have some data that then looks at the future of work currently within the pandemic and moving forward? We all know, and if I remember very well, Cynthia mentioned that we have employees who are enjoying working from home. They're even more productive. We have other employees who must work within that interactive environment. Do we have data? Do we have records to show that Ruth functions, is at her element when she's working from home, or Ruth could be asleep during the day, but when it comes to nighttime is when she's even more productive? We need to have all those records that we know they more or less inform us the kind of employees we are having within our database, and then that still then emphasizes the aspect of personalization. That we don't look at people in HR and say this is how HR people are, but we drill down and know those people on a personal level. How do they deliver? How do they perform? When they are within the family situation, for instance, do we know that they are best in performance? Or are these employees well placed in performance when then their children are asleep, for instance? So all those factors come into play. So essentially then what I'm saying is, as HR, our data needs to cease, because in most times we've been downgraded, if you like, and that explains in most instances why we have not entered the board. Most people think our work is to keep records, but we need to have a strategic focus, that we have HR analytics that then can help management and the board, for instance, to make decisions that are affecting people almost immediately. So much so that in the event we have an incident like this, we are not found flat-footed, but we fit into the organization seamlessly and ensure that we are driving what is required of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. In essence, what we're saying is that we need to start the work right away, because this is about the time that the incidents are happening, and we have the opportunity to gather data which we can use for future purposes from all that we're saying. Is that right?
Yes. Sure.
Good. Thank you so much. Now, to Ruth, and then I'll come to Jen. So, Mark has already touched on it. I was going to ask you what you felt was the importance of us having, readily available data, so that we will be able to plan properly during such times.
Right. Thank you. I will pick up from where Mark left off. Mark referred to having available data and accurate data as well. Now, if you have correct and available data, you are able as HR to input into business continuity planning, for instance. You know your skill set. You know people's interests. You'll be surprised what people can do out of their allocated roles. You might have somebody who is a head of department, but they know how to drive a forklift. And in terms of a pandemic, people, when you have an engaged workforce, people would do anything to keep the wheels going. So it is important that we have these available and accurate. I'll cite an example. In the UK, the NHS had to recall retired nurses and doctors. Now, if HR did not have sight of retired people and their accurate contact mobile phones, how on earth are you going to get them back into health? So it has to be accurate, in time, and available. Another example, you're doing talent management and succession planning. You don't have any good records of where people are in their development. How do you develop them? How do you engage them? How do you plan, for those retiring? Again, without accurate data, how do you plan your workforce? In a health situation, again, you have nurses. You don't know the age profile of your population because you don't gather that basic data. How are you going to plan that in the next 3-5 years, we're going to lose so many people naturally through retirement? So we need to start training people to fit into that place. Again, apart from that, if you have good data, you have your data on retention, you know why people leave, you know how much it costs you to hire, you measure time to hire from advert to people starting. So all of that, it is quite important. If you have the data and it's available, it helps you react quickly and proactively, put it that way, when there is a crisis. And it even makes you better in making decisions when there is no crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Today is nothing short of the realities of disruption. We really facing, right here at site and communicating to you all the challenges that, working from home and having to deal with remote work and all that comes with. So thank you so much for that insight. Now I want to move from the kind of data that we need, which of course we've all agreed that it's very essential that we put some data in place so we can come from precedents and then we can forge forward. Now we've all realized, and media is carrying it out, that having people work from home has its own challenges, a lot of problems, dealing with children and what have you. Now, I will take from Ruth and then I'll come to you, Jen. I'm taking from Ruth because you work in the space of, medics. And so, in all of these crises, how do you suggest that we take care of our employees and their well-being? Because it is obvious that the next problem we're going to be facing will have to do with depression and stress levels, blood pressures hitting the roof, and people simply trying to adjust to the new normal. It's a crazy time for a lot of people. I don't know how many people have had to throw their laptops, just across the room because they are so frustrated. You're having to wait for another colleague to send you feed that you need to work with, and it's not coming. Whereas if you were in the same space, you could just walk over to them and smack them on their head and say, "Give me the data I need," for example. So what do you think we can do in terms of taking care of our employees and their well-being?
Right. The first thing that comes to my mind is flexibility and agility. Leadership and management needs to realize that when people are given flexible options, trust is built and people become productive. So we need to start, and I think Mark mentioned something. We need to realize that people function best at different times. We're all not the same, we're all unique. So we need to be conscious of flexibility, giving people flexible options. If the working day, traditionally was 9 to 5, somebody might get up at 7 and function best between 7 and 10. Have that conversation of flexibility. Again, you touched on mental health. There has to be the culture of openness. Let's talk about how you're feeling and genuinely mean it to know how people are feeling. And when people are stressed about something at work, they have to be able to articulate that without fearing that they will be victimized of not meeting the mark. So that open culture of discussing stress-related issues is important. What we need to do as businesses also is to create the environment where people can learn to identify the triggers. When you're stressed, what is it like? Do you have regular headaches? Do you feel dizzy? Sleeplessness? So creating that space of people learning, or we equip people to identify those things. And I always look at this, you are an emotional being. If you're emotional tank, do you know how to measure your own emotional tank? Do you know how to identify when a team member is struggling? I think Kojo mentioned, some people just won't talk, but you can see non-verbal signs. And now that we are home, working virtually, how do you see these things? What we can do, very simple, is doesn't cost us anything. Plan in protected time to have non-work conversations. Book a meeting time, have coffee, have a tea, or everybody should bring their lunch. What did you cook today? And have that 1 hour that is not work related. And it helps that people are not feeling on their own, because some people might be living on their own. They don't have family around them. So that helps. And also, finally, let's make mental health conversations an agenda item on our one-to-ones. We will not meet personally, for the next couple of months, who knows? The workplace has changed. So during our one-to-one conversations, let's genuinely find out how people are actually doing. Are you okay? Are you sleeping well? Oh, I'm stressed. I don't feel like it today. I'm not firing on 6 cylinders. I used to run, but now I can't run. those are all conversations we can, and it doesn't cost us anymore to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Jeff, what do you think we can do?
Yeah, it definitely appears that Ruth and the rest of the team have covered quite a substantial amount of it. I think it's very important to really institute employee assistance programs where, it's interesting because you'll be surprised that there's some people who just don't like to share. So we want to be sure that employee assistance programs are completely anonymous, where people can reach out quietly and talk about what they're struggling with. At the same time, we want to, prepare our employees to be very caring. We want to create an environment where self-care is talked about. We want to create an environment. Oh, sorry. Correct? Okay. Okay. So, sorry. We want to create an environment where, people. Okay. Sorry. We want to create an environment where people feel emboldened to speak about challenges. I think also we want to empower our managers, right, with some discretionary power during this time, for them to actually make some exceptions for certain people who like to work in groups, for example. I know certain people who are, let's say, not morning people, right, give them some time. So schedule, create different Ruth, sorry. Like Ruth said, right, it's important to create flexible options, right? And also get people to self-select into teams. There are certain people who like to work at night. There are certain people who like to work during the day, right? So, and one thing is a lot of people, the way I look at it is a lot of people are dealing with a serious issue of isolation, right? So, what I know that some companies do is that they actually get people to forge certain times when they come together. Okay. Sorry, I apologize. Okay, also. So, it all comes down, I would say it all comes down to giving folks flexible options and giving leaders the autonomy, right, to, I would say, grant employees some freedom around their schedules, some freedom around the teams that they choose, some freedom around the projects that they want to work on, because this is not the point where you can really go out and monitor people. You can't micromanage people, right? So what you want to do is, you want to get people to be fully engaged even whilst at home. What do we mean here? You want people to commit to a course. And by committing to that course, all you have to do is make sure you are validating and verifying their work output. So I think this is the time where we start using a lot more projectization, where you get people to select and pick and choose who they want to work with if possible, right? And then just give people the freedom, the options, everything to be able to work together to make sure that they are making the choices, not too much the leaders. That's what I thought about that.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Could you wrap us up on that particular question? What do you think we need to do?
Okay, my colleagues have touched on everything, including data collection, just talked about the assistance program. I think what it is, this is nothing new. What HR has to do today is nothing new from what HR was doing 20 years ago. I've said for over 20 something years, I've been doing flexible hours. Employee assistance program has existed. And when we talk about data collection, what data are we talking about? We are talking about absenteeism, we are talking about those who choose to work from home, we are talking about productivity, we are talking about illness, we are talking about medical personnel. All these data has existed over the years. So, digitization, I started as a technology implementation, and big companies have used all these data over the years. So I think what is missing for HR now is not a lack of data or the know-how of instituting employee engagement program, employee assistance program, but it's actually what do you do when you get the data? So let's say two companies, they are using Oracle. Oracle is a robust HR system. You don't have the data that we are talking about. One person, one company has been able to forge ahead and come up with some creative ways of dealing with COVID. And we say, oh, because they have data. We don't have data. So what HR really needs is strategic mindset. Strategic mindset, meaning with all this that is happening, what is our focus? And you'll be surprised to hear me say that our focus is on the customer, not the employee. However, for the customer to be satisfied with the right product, the right price, and the right quality, we have to make sure that the employee has what it takes to deliver. So then you realize that taking good care of the employee becomes the means to an end. So you normally will hear HR say, oh, take good care of the employees. I say, no, take good care of the customer. But you cannot tell your employee to say, oh, when the customer walks in, smile and greet the customer. When you yourself are screaming at this employee, you are not checking the work. So then HR comes in and says, if I want my employees to greet and smile to the customer, then I also have to do something to put a smile on their face. So if we start thinking about how do we get good products, how do we get quality products, how do we get more customers in these difficult times, we will begin to do all the things we are saying to our employees as HR. When you look at all policies that we have, seriously, if we have to implement the policies that we have written, we really have a problem. We have good policies. I go to organizations, not for that. They say you want to do policy review. And you see, so you have all this on paper. So I think this is the time for us to take a different approach and say, look, HR is not just having all these policies in place. But how do we become strategic contributors so that our employees will feel happy and produce? And that's what we call employee engagement. And even though when you read a book, there are so many factors, I think every situation is different to get it. So I think Jeff mentioned about knowing your people, getting your people to feel part of it. And the more you have this mindset of I want people to feel happy and produce, probably you find your own ways of engaging the employees so that we can meet our customer needs. So for those of you who are not collecting data, use something as simple as Excel. I think these days there are cheaper software. Some of the subscription is like $5 a month. So you cannot be in an organization with maybe 5 or more employees and talk about I don't have data. Data is cheap to have. It's what you do with the data.
So apologies for that. So Mark, I was just asking if you had any real life experiences or if you had seen any businesses that had improved their work by listening to their workforce with during this pandemic, for example.
Is that directed to me? Hello?
It's gone off again.
Hello, now I can hear you. Ruth.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Thank you. I did a small survey on my LinkedIn page a while ago, and to speak the truth, there is very, very little that I can give as case studies in terms of organizations that have improved on that front. In fact, when I looked at that particular question, when you send the WhatsApp message, I just reflected on what we did, the polling we did, and the kind of conversations we had on my LinkedIn page. And there's very little. I mean, companies like Gallup have examples of those big companies out there in the US, in the UK, and other first world countries. But locally, there's very little, very, very little. I think we are most organizations are still surviving in terms of lessons learned and how do we go forward and improving.
Well, that's Mark's experience by far. So, what about you, Jeff? Have you had any experiences? Have you seen any organizations that improve their laws just by listening to their workforce?
Well, as an independent contractor, I haven't really been privy to the inside information that companies do share. But I'm also a contractor for the Association for Talent Development. And what I know is that they run like a lot of surveys, almost on a monthly basis, to kind of take a temperature, right, of how their contractors are feeling and respond and react accordingly. Another thing that I know also is I consult for them internally. So one of the things that they did very quickly was that they contacted all their employees and asked which of them want to get to the office and which of them want to work from home and things like that. And then they also adopted more like a projectized approach where they get people to work on projects, so pick and choose as and when so that they can kind of adapt to a more flexible time scale to manage their kids and things like that. And I believe that from, again, my personal interactions with them, I'm not seeing the data, but I'm believing that, it looks like they seem to be working very well, that they seem to have changed. And they actually, to me, I think they're actually doing better. They're doing better because they're saving a lot of time, time that they typically would drive to work. And I've had like calls with people during late hours and things like that. So what I would personally say is that every company really has to look at its own circumstances and really align what works best for this company. But again, for that particular organization that I know, I haven't seen too much of a result.
Thank you so much. At this point, I would want to just take a break to see if we have any questions, flying in from our participants. Or if someone has a question that we haven't covered, we are more than happy to take it. We'll take a few questions and then we'll move quickly into the section 2 since we are way behind schedule.
Sorry, Cynthia, can I make an observation before people ask the questions, if you don't mind?
Yes, please.
Thank you. When I listen to all panelists, the aspect of data has been repeated so many times. And I remember if it's Godfrey who talked about HR has all this data with itself. It's just a question of getting to know what we do with that data. And my apologies, I don't want to sound like I'm pitching. The solution to that data is for us as HR practitioners to adopt ISO 3414-2018. ISO 314 looks at what you have as data in an organization and how can you as an HR practitioner actually exemplify to management and the board your ROI. All the activities you do within the organization lie within the ISO 3414 with 11 core areas for measurement, core metric areas for measurement. And we look at the entire HR spectrum, the entire HR life cycle, onboarding, succession planning, culture management, all those things. So I emphasize that we may consider looking at what ISO 3414 is and how can we then transform data to make meaning as HR practitioners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the addition. We're open now for a few questions, 2 or 3. Is there any question in the chat? Okay. If not, we will move into the next session. I will be joined by Evelyn Garte. You already know her, so I won't introduce her much. We want to go into starting your HR career. A lot of people reached out to me, and they were more emphatic about trying to understand what they need to do as young professionals to be able to get to the very top. And so, Emma, since people have decided that we have done a very good job, I think I can clap for Jeff, Kojo, Mark, and Ruth, and you've done awesome. And they are the same people going to take us through the HR section. We're just trying to make room for Emma to join us, so that we can move straight into the section 2.
You know what I'm saying?
So we're just going to go straight into our next session. And for me, what I understand is that HR is a calling. It's just like a pastor's calling. Now, don't ask me if that call comes on, a mobile phone or every weekend. I don't know, but it's simply a calling. Because if you don't have the calling, you won't be able to actually excel in the field. Now, Jeff, how did your call come?
I'd like to get this story.
Well, it's interesting because most people think it's a call, but I think that failing to plan is planning to do. So even though, yes, mine did more of a hybrid, it happened more of a hybrid, I still have plans in place to pursue certain areas. I worked in Parliament, and I wanted to really go do business in the United States, and I wanted to really get into finance, but unfortunately, I couldn't pay for finance. So I got a professor at Georgia State who offered me human resource development. So I got a professor at Georgia State who offered me human resource development with a little bit of what I add to the scholarship package, with the notion that I'll come back and help my country in the long run. So that was what got me into human resource development. Now, when I got into human resource development, I found instructional systems design, and I was like, this really makes sense to me, right? So I latched into it, Eventually, I ended up getting my business degree, but I was still too attached to instructional design, and I decided not to go on it. So mine was more of a hybrid, let me say.
Wow. That's quite some story there. Oh, I understand I have a question there. If I may just quickly read that question whilst we actually digest this one. So there's a question. I heard one of the panelists mention that data is cheap. Well, that's good. And with $5 a month, one could get access to something. Could he give one such source of data that is something? This is more for organizations that are still struggling to survive. Yes, HR wants to be very professional. Thank you. That's from me.
At least as performanceculture.com, you can get performance data, engagement data, target data. I think Bamboo HR, but then for you to get that, you still have to build the employee profile in there. So right there, if you're interested in performance and engagement, at least you build the employment records in there before you can use them. So that is cheap. And then I think Bamboo HR too, there's another, maybe at least a few of the cheap ones for you to share with us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we will be sharing with you some of the $5 ones that you can actually make use of in gathering data, interpreting it, and also making feeding out of it. So thank you so much, Kojo. So Emma, since we are that, since we have to pass the
Okay, so I think that the judge didn't really understand that he actually is called. Because when they say you are called, it actually is speaking about purpose. And for everyone who flourishes in a particular career, it shows that we are called to do it. However, he also mentioned rightly that there's planning, and once you know your purpose, then the readiness you need to plan accordingly to succeed in that career, so you are called. Anyway, so yes, for me, I think, like Jeff, it was accidental. I never knew anything about human resources. I mean, all we knew was personnel management. Anything like that was never near close to my engineering career. I've always been a people-oriented person, and I always thought I would end up in medicine because I wanted to help to get well, But the one plans and God laughs. I actually walked into HR because I was running away from maths. Because I kept on feeling worse because maths would have been one step ahead. And I thought, okay, you know what, this medicine is not working, science is not working for me, let me just run away to a course that I can easily just get into. And out of desperation, I got to know the course. So I went to psychology finally because I noticed that I still love science. On psychology, but it didn't work out for me. And then I said, you know what, I'm having issues, so let me see what I will do. And then I stumbled into a course called human resources. And I was like, okay, let me check it out. And I noticed that human resources actually deal with people. And that was why I actually chose it. For me, I've always been somebody who loves to develop people. I always want to bring the best out of people. And I didn't know that organizations also needed people to be the best so I can succeed. And that was why I found myself in this course. And I have never regretted a single day when I took on this professional HR.
Thank you so much, Emily. I understand you have a lot of some actually put it up, we will do our best. Yes. So just so we can move on, I'm gonna ask Kojo how he fell into HR.
Yeah, I was actually going to agree with Jeff. Emma came in and I'm confused. So let me say, I was called. So here's my story. Even now, when you meet my uncle, my late uncle died last year. So no matter how confused I am. Because I started off as a programmer and then I became an SAP consultant doing implementation. But we were doing a lot of HR implementation. So we do finance implementation, and the finance people will give us data. Then we run with the data. You go to sales, they'll give you data. You go to HR, before they give you the data, they pass it through a process called the scrambler. And it messes up the whole data so that you can't see anything. And I said, you need the financial figure they are giving it to us. HR, what is it about HR? So out of curiosity, I started hustling them. And this is what I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago. I started hustling the HR people, and they wouldn't give anything HR, somebody has to sit with you to do the system. I thought it was just not right. So the same thing, these people, they don't do anything. All they do is they do, and then they are so secretive, and then they sit for your salary and all of that. So that's why I went on and on. And then I went to do my MBA. I did MBA in entrepreneurship. As I was a consultant, an IT consultant, I just wanted to set up my own business. But for some reason, my project work is what I'm doing today. My MBA entrepreneurship project work is what I'm doing. So I chose to set up a consulting practice. And the consulting practice was to start with recruitment and training in IT. And then somehow along the line, all this job rotation that we are talking about, way back then, my company was doing it. So they said you could do 20% in another unit of your choice. So I chose HR. So 5 days of the week, I was doing what with HR. And then I started learning about the HR. So I said, in the US, you have to attest to this. No matter your degree, if you don't have certification in any particular thing, you don't really move or you don't get recognized. So I said, okay, if I'm interested in this HR and I want to do this, let me start learning about HR certifications. So nobody out of my own research, I found out about SHR. And I said, no, I cannot say HR. I started reading about it and I realized what I learned from SHR about HR, what I thought HR were two different things. SHR was more business focused. So they defined HR from the perspective of achieving business goals. Whereas others were looking at HR also making people happy. I said, no, we have to make some money here. So I said, okay. So we started training in Java and all of those things with project management. And then I said, no, let me do it. So I studied, at the time it was PHR, SPHR. So I did SPHR myself and I passed. And then we added that to our HR offerings before I came to Ghana. So when I came to Ghana, we were running, the concept of CITAM was everything certification. We were running SIPs, we were running everything. But for some reason, the HR people called me. Every time somebody calls me, it's about HR. Everything somebody calls me. So the project management and stuff that was my initial focus kind of shifted a little bit. And when you study entrepreneurship, they always say when you start a business, your customers will define you. So the customers actually called me, so that was my point. And I've never regretted it. Because every time I talk about HR, I always look at it from the business angle first before I come to the business side.
Right. That's Ujo's story. There's a question here, and so I will direct it to Mark. Someone is asking, in times like this, how can the right manager be attracted? Hello, Mark. So we all know that, some organizations had to scale down in terms of personnel. Some had to ration salaries, they had to cut as much as 30%, 50% off. And some people lost their jobs as a result of this pandemic. And you have a lot of people out there with varied talent and yet unemployed. You also have a team that perhaps is not pulling their weight, though the organization is working. And so productivity is being negatively affected at this moment. You are just unable to even understand if you're going to survive after COVID. And so we're trying to understand, how do you find that right talent out there now that you seem to be having more supply than demand?
That's
can help us with that.
I heard your question.
Oh,
Thank you.
Mark is on now. Oh, yes.
Thank you very much. I did see that question and I was very excited to make a contribution if you didn't shoot it towards my right direction. It still then boils down to what we've been discussing since we started this conference. It's the question of how does the human resource function together with the other C-suite managers, if you like, and the CEO and the board, ensure that we as employers are living the employee value proposition. Value proposition in the sense that how do we manage the entire value chain within human resources? And how do we create a brand out there? People would have heard that people were sent off because businesses were performing badly. But do we then as companies or as organizations have a brand that, you know, I remember Ruth mentioning that even when we exit employees, can they be our ambassadors? What is the messaging out there about company X vis-a-vis company Y on how employees are handled from onboarding to exit? So my simple answer, we can discuss this for the rest of the evening for those of us who have been in HR for long, but it's a question of ensuring that that HR value chain for all employees there's the employee value proposition. What do we in the psychological contract? Those of us who have been trained more in HR, what kind of contract are we giving employees, and we live that contract? So the employee value proposition and the employer brand is what will enable us to still get the best talents, the A players in this market back to organization, despite the fact that we have exited certain employees because of the vagaries of business as brought about by the coronavirus pandemic. I don't know whether that is sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. We'll just move on. Ruth, please, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Talk briefly about your story and how you used the strength that you had to harness your career.
Right. Mine was equally an accident. It wasn't planned. I started out as an English teacher, but when I had kids and I had to look after them, no support with childcare, I thought, I still enjoy doing people, so I'll try HR. So that is how I found myself in HR, and I never regretted it, and I've not looked back. So I decided to do my postgraduate studies in HR. And I think one of our panelists mentioned certification is everything. And no matter how much you know, when you want to go up, you need to be certified. That is, you know, one of the things. And I had to look inward and think about, what do I enjoy doing? So for those of you who want to, you know, understand what you enjoy doing or where you thrive, just look inward and identify what you actually enjoy doing and what you also are good at. Because when you identify what you're good at, what your strengths are, you just flow. You don't struggle to flow. And nowadays, there's a lot of psychometric testing online. You don't need a company to, you know, do it for you. You can just find one. There's a popular one with strengths, Clifton Strengths. Buy the book. It's not expensive. Do the test, identify your strengths. And another thing I would say is you have to be deliberate about what you want. Set your goals, plan it, and find out how you're going to implement it. I look at the analogy of 10, 20, 70. Your employer can give you the structures to work within to develop yourself. Your line manager, your coach, your mentor that you have identified or been given might be able to do 20%, but 70% is your business. You need to own your development. You need to own your career. Otherwise, you won't achieve what you want to achieve. And when you've been able to identify your strengths, mine, you know, when I did it, I realized that I enjoy learning, I relate to people, and I'm a maximizer. So I'm always looking for the next best thing. How can we do this better? That was, what came out, and I'm also analytical. So I asked myself this question: where do I enjoy working? There's so many areas of HR. Do I enjoy talent attraction? Do I enjoy compensation and benefits? Do I enjoy analytics? And because I'm analytic, I enjoy compensation and benefits. I enjoy job evaluation, things like that. And I also asked myself, I'm starting off as an advisor. How do I manage to climb to be where I want to be? Do I have the transferable skills? Do I need to learn further? You can attend conferences like we're doing today. I am learning a lot today, so you can get your skills there. And also in your journey, who inspires you? What inspires you? Trust me, it's just not hard work. Now, who mentions your name in that decision-making place, in that boardroom when you're not there? So identify a sponsor. Now, when I say identify a sponsor, somebody who will root for you when there are projects going and you're not there to offer your skills. And when you identify your sponsor, it's not everybody you ask who would be available to say, yes, don't give up. But when you're able to find one, be honest with them, be able to tell them what you hope to achieve and what you can help them with, because it's a give and take scenario. And perfect your elevator pitch. Assuming you've met the most influential person you've been wanting to talk to in your business to help you flourish, or even outside your organization, what do you tell that person in a minute or 30 minutes? And I call it elevator pitch because you might be riding the elevator with your MD. You've got a chance there. How do you sell yourself? How do you communicate what you're hoping to achieve? So those are some of the things I did. And I put myself forward for projects that were outside my remit. And my sponsor, it's not in HR. He's an IT director. So you don't limit yourself within HR. Build relationships, build working relationships inside and outside your department. Hopefully it helps somebody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That indeed is very true. The elevator pitch has helped a lot of us get this far. And so I'll go to Emma now. As young professionals, how do you propose we try to identify our strength? Now, I've seen that a trend really is that once people think that they like to chat and they're a bit loud, then they think HR is for them. For me, I have a different opinion. I think if you're loud and you can chat, you might as well set up a market. It's not necessarily coming to HR. So, what do you think are some of the strengths that we actually need to look out for if we want to be HR professionals?
Okay, so first of all, I think that once you have identified the fact that you are supposed to be doing HR, or you see that you are able, you try your hands on everything. I think I started from as an intern. I learned the whole ropes, before I could actually decide to specify. Some people want to be generalists, but the way things are going, being a specialist in a profession is actually much more just advice. I mean, you are easy to succeed when you're focused, right? Be intentional about the path. But interestingly enough, there are traits that actually will make you, or if you want to say success factors as to what will make you succeed in HR. Yes, it's not about being loud content, being able to talk to people. I think Ojo said something that really struck me, and I think that is why certification is more important than your degrees. HR cannot be separated from the business because HR does not exist outside the business. Okay, now prior to human resource starting, there was personal management, and that was when they noticed that people-related supervisors were not really impacting in business decisions, and hence human resources came about. And so the popular trait you know about being an HR person is one, human relations skills, ability to plan, lead, manage, organize, direct your people, training and development, motivate, welfare, planning. But now it's gone beyond that to risk management. We mentioned that a lot. You do things like SHR and the PHR or SPHR. You have thought things like compensations, plan and benefits. You have thought things like labor relations. You have thought things like occupational health and safety. Beyond that, now we are looking at strategic HR leadership. We are looking at business acumen. You know, as an HR person, if you are able to understand the metrics of business, you don't even understand your business partners. I mean, you wouldn't have a seat at the board. You wouldn't have a seat at management tables. When people are making decisions, you wonder why every time HR is not called for a meeting. But the moment you are able to make decisions that connect to the bottom line, I think that is one of the most important traits. I think on our platforms, we've always been saying this. If you cannot connect HR decisions to bottom line, then you cannot work in HR. So you can be loud about it, you can, and I could just say something, he said, I used to think that HR was making people happy. But I would say it's a balance between making people happy and making money. Because when you allow, many times people say, oh, the finances are more important. We don't have a problem because without finance, they can make human beings attracted to your company. But I think there's a balance of everything. And they already would actually prefer that an HR person is next in line to see you. Because he thinks that an HR person should have the ability to even understand financial decisions. You know, because he understands the HR chief understands every human being from the CEO to the janitor. So what is wrong with an HR person is second in command to the CEO, but then that's a challenge we are still facing because many of us HRs have not risen to that level. We do have some people who are chief of staff. In some companies that will call chief of staff, yeah, because the HR person has been able to level up to operations and HR as well. So I think that, I mean, beyond the soft skills, we know business acumen, ability to understand risk management, even project management is very, very important. You cannot lose sight of this. Even marketing, branding, commercial, because the aspect of marketing HR is what we just the gentleman that spoke of Kenya, employer branding, which is what we call HR marketing. If you have no idea about HR marketing, the recruitment will fail. You'll not be able to understand the connection between the brand of the company and the kind of people you want to recruit. For we HR, the connection between the brand and the people's culture. So when you don't even understand what the company wants, how do you develop the culture to ensure that the behaviors you need to draft or the DNAs you need for your employees, you'll be able to connect. And that is why we have a lot of employees coming in and we are failing. We spend so much on coaching people and you don't get results. That's because of the disconnect.
Thank you so much, Emma. So I'm going to go to Mark because he also doubles up as the CEO. So Mark, we have a troubling trend in the world because we have fewer HR persons making it to the boardroom. In fact, just recently in Ghana, when we had Dr. Saletin Boateng make it as a deputy in charge of VRA, some of us had a party. I had a chance. Yes, drunk alone. I invited you. I had a party because it was history being made. Now, you being a CEO and an HR, what do you think has been the limiting factor for us to get a seat at the table? Well, I intend to bring my own seat to the table. I'll create my own table called the board, and then I'm there. But aside my table, what do you think is happening in the HR community? Why do we have less people getting to the top?
Thank you very much, Cynthia, for that question. It makes me reflect on what I had our sister just say a few minutes ago. What has denied HR from entering the boardroom is that we are not able to speak the CEO's language. Why are we unable to speak the CEO's language? When people are talking about finance, people are talking about the brand, people are talking about marketing, we don't understand that language at all. And then that actually limits our opportunities or chances of getting into the boardroom. Our inward approach towards human capital management is what is limiting us from getting into that boardroom. Why do I say so? Those of us who are fans of Dave Ulrich, HR from inside outside in. As HR practitioners, we are supposed to look at the organization from a holistic point of view. Like my sister pointed out, I couldn't get her name when she came in. Our holistic view of the organization strategically is what is our value proposition? What do we stand for as an organization? What do we want other people to know us about? If, for instance, it's ExxonMobil or Apple, what are they known for? And then we come up with a strategic plan that is actually business related, that if we do this, the outcome is that. And we should be able to actually speak in numerical terms. We can't just say we motivated people last year, so what? That's what the CEO is interested in knowing. I had an experience of my last CEO and I worked in the manufacturing concern, because we went there to turn around that company. It was actually one of the largest sugar manufacturing concerns in Eastern Central Africa. This company went down because of mismanagement and all that. So the new CEO who came on board was there like 30 years ago, and he came back as a very old man. And I used to go to the factory every other day because I knew for me to be an HR manager in this company and to make a contribution which is significant, I must understand what it means to pick that cane from the farm, to crush it, to dry it up until sugar is packed and gets to the market. And the CEO used to find me there, and one day during our operations meetings asked me, "Boy, you're a personnel guy, what are you doing in the factory?" And I was shocked. But I said to him, if I don't understand how sugar is manufactured until it reaches the shelf, I don't deserve to be your HR manager. So what am I saying in brief? What I'm saying in brief is that we need to speak the business. Only speaking the business language will take us to the boardroom. And we cannot pretend to speak the language. We must tie that language with figures. If, for instance, we talk about employee engagement, how is it contributing to retention of employees? How is it contributing to higher productivity? How is it contributing to attraction and retention of customers? So it's a question of speaking figures, because all CEOs, those of us who are in practice, when you're going to make a presentation to a CEO who likes figures, tells you, what is your last page? Does it have figures? Okay, go to the last page and come back. They want to know the numericals of what you're telling them. So essentially what I'm saying is that we need to remove that hat of being record keepers, being those people who make employees happy in an organization, for instance, which is very key, especially when you look at it from the pandemic. But then we must understand the business imperatives that then put us in those offices, so much so that in the absence of the CEO, you should be able to act as the acting CEO. And when he's leaving, you should be among the succession people who have been identified within the 9-grid box, that even you can be one of the CEOs in the event the CEO exits. So bottom line is, we've sung the song of HRBP, for instance. But if you ask an HRBP what they are doing in that organization, you'll be very surprised. I was trying to talk to some friends of mine on LinkedIn about ISO, and this HRBP never read my message, and she goes like, you know what, we already have the ISO system, we've already implemented, we are waiting for the report. And I'm like, ISO 34, and she said, oh no, I didn't read, I thought it was 2015, 9001. So we don't really understand our contribution to the business as strategic contributors. We run the most important asset in the organization, like Ruth said. But how do we turn that into figures? How can we speak a language that is understood by the CEO? When we tell them we want to increase salaries, how do we say, if we increase salaries, one, will have retention of X because our turnover has been X for the last so many months. We have used our survey and we realize that our leadership team is not very good in leading teams, because we always say that we have leaders in organizations. How many times do we even sit down and assess their competencies on leadership? Somebody might be a finance manager, might be an IT director, very good at IT, but are they leaders? How do we go to the board and say, we are recommending 3 or 4 leaders to go to Harvard or to go to Wharton so that they go through a program, a leadership program? How do we justify that? We can talk about this for the longest time, but what I can say in brevity is HR needs to speak the business language for HR to get a seat on the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was very comprehensively discussed. So I know Ruth will have to take some time also. I will ask her a question now so that I come back to you, gentlemen and lady. So Ruth, how do we manage the politics around promotions in our career?
Can you repeat that for me, Cynthia? I lost part of it.
Right, I was asking in your opinion, how you felt that we could manage the politics around our promotion and our career as far as HR people. You know, when it comes to HR, most of the times in organizations, and if we are put up for promotion of any kind, you have a lot of people contesting it.
Right. Thank you for that. I will follow up from what Mark just said. We do a lot of work, but we don't speak the business language. So we need to position ourselves to be able to articulate our impact in terms of figures and impact on the bottom line. If an HR person is known for reducing absence rates, so what? How much does that contribute to saving the business some money or increasing profitability? And we also need to communicate. We don't sell ourselves. You know, we hide in our one corner, do our thing, just let everybody be happy. And we don't highlight our own profiles. And it's important that we network within our organizations and, you know, let people know what we're doing. And that boils down to communication. If we have an annual conference, how do we present our winnings? How do we present our impact throughout the year or quarterly? How do we communicate that? So if we are able, and it boils down, for me, it boils down, like Mark said, into numbers. As a HR leader in your organization, through this year, in spite of the pandemic, you've been able to maintain retention rates. It costs the business 33% of somebody who is leaving salary to rehire, just rehire, excluding training. So if you've been able to have a retention rate of 95%, blow your horns, let people know. Because if you won't say, I am, nobody will say thou art. And that is our problem in HR. So we need to learn to share and communicate our impact in terms of business language. Thank you.
Yes, we lost track somewhere because our connectivity just suddenly left. But I'm sure that you had Ruth's response. I'm sure she's done with it. So I really just want to go straight into this because we are far behind schedule as well. I'm going to ask Kojo to walk us through the certification process with what otherwise people call SHRM. Typically, I will say SHRM, and the UK people will say SHRM. So please walk us through the certification process from that.
I think US, especially in school of certification for almost every professional area. And there's a difference between a certificate and then certification. The certificate is a course you can just go and take the gradation, you give the certificate for that. Yes.
So I was asking Jeff. To walk us through the certification also regarding the SPHR and ATE and all the others that he has. This gentleman is a capital of certification. Professor Jadbo Emeritus.
Hello. Okay, so I agree with my senior Kojo. What I would say is the reason why I specifically pursue certifications is that I've come to realize that the industry as a whole is changing, right? In the past, we used to focus a lot on knowledge, but knowledge is sitting on the internet right now, unused. So the industry is gradually shifting towards expertise and experience. And you really remember that expertise and experience continuously changes. So when you take these certification programs, in a way, you tell the world that you have breast, number one. Number two, that you have the certification, you have the expertise and experience. And then number three, that you constantly recalibrate, right? So that's the reason why I like to take some of these things, just to prove them at the table. For NTD, like I said, I'm a contractor with them. I teach some of their courses. They also have certification programs in the learning and development space, and they have certain certificate programs and things that I teach as well. So that will be my response in that show.
Right. So Emma is also an ambassador for PHR and SPHR. And let me just quickly say that for Emma, she says that if the certificate you have has not fetched you money, don't do that. We've been fighting this battle forever. She and I, we cannot agree on that. It's just impossible. However, Emma, can you kindly walk people through that you need to do the PHR and when it is that you can do the SPHR. Now we actually have the SPHRI and the PHRI, which is the international scope focus one.
Okay, so I think we don't hit the nail on the head when he said if you've not had a degree, if you've not had a degree, you will struggle a bit. What people need to understand is that certification actually endorses you as yes, you actually are qualified for the job. Because you must have gone through a process, experienced, made mistakes, and learned from it. Because you develop expertise from what? Constantly practicing, failing and learning, yeah? And I mean, extensively being involved in a lot of subject matter issues as far as your career is concerned. So for me, I had experience, and when I wrote my PHR, it was basically testing what I knew. It wasn't adding knowledge to you, it was asking me questions about things it assumes I've experienced. So if you some people through for path and we're successful, but for me, I think learning is not about that. It has to be exploration. You have to have experience. And Jennifer, who is an instructional designer, will let you understand that when you're even designing training content, it is not to just give you knowledge. It's supposed to, test you. You're going through fire, and you need to perform through it. So I would say that you need to have a certain level of experience. Internship is fantastic. Volunteering work is fantastic. You can do it. So please let that happen. After, I think PHR will give you 2 years. And I think after a certain number of years of practice, you need to become a manager and lead a certain school before you can proceed to senior professional in HR. That's when you become an HR director or maybe chief people officer, whatever you are. And as Cynthia said, previously we had to do the PHR with American laws. My goodness, we have to cram all the laws, but now we have moved that it's become much easier for Africans or any other person in America to be examination.
Thank you. So we're going to take a shrimp again because apparently people actually lost you. Our feed was acting up. So we're just going to quickly walk us through that. And whilst Mark will be preparing to walk us through areas of specialization that we possibly want to look at as HR professionals, Ruth will add her voice to that as well if she's still here with us.
Yeah. Okay, so with the sharing certification, I think I started by trying to differentiate between what a certification is and then what a certificate is. So a certificate does not require any work experience. You can just go to the classroom, finish, and then you get a certificate. Whereas certification requires some level of job experience. So if you want to do any certification, not just the sharing, there's some experience requirement. But specifically for the sharing programs, they have 2 levels, the sharing CP and sharing SCP. So with the CP, then you need 2 years bachelor's degree, and then you have to have a master's in the job. But then if you want to do the SCP, then you have to have a master's in 2 years, or you have to have a bachelor's in 4 years. So that's basically it. But the reason why the work experience is also important is the nature of the questions. I think that's what Emma is saying. They put you in a situation where, in some cases, you can remember you having to take certain decisions at work. So if you haven't been confronted with that kind of situation, it becomes difficult for you to relate. So you learn the concept and then you apply. But let me just add one more certification that we just started running, which is One at Work. One at Work does a compensation certification, and we started working with them on that as well.
Awesome. So, well, someone was asking if SPHR and CHRMP are recognized in Ghana. The answer is yes. If you've taken note, a lot of adverts now will be asking you to state if you have any international certification aside IHRP. And a lot of the multinationals, especially, will be stating categorically that if you have SPHR, it's an advantage. If you have CIPD, it's another advantage. If you have CHRA, CHRBP, ATD. Now, there's so many certifications. If your question was, if you can use SPHR to work in the UK, for example, then I will be saying that in the UK, and Ruth, I don't know how far things will change, but UK, for example, is more tilted towards CIPD, which is also the professional certification. It runs from level 3 to 7. So you have level 3, level 4, 5, and 7. They have the diploma, and then they have the certification itself. And Ruth, if you are there, I don't know if this has changed. People with SPHR, not the SPHRI, which is now supposed to be global in nature. Is it recognized in UK?
It is still recognized, and in the mainstream is still CIPD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you, I think the first question, let me touch on the IHR. 2 reasons for doing any certification, SPHR, SHR, SCP, and all of that. But recently, the Institute of Human Resource Management Practitioners got chartered. And I kind of read through, there is a bit of controversy that I think we have to grapple with. But they seem to have pushed across in that if you have any other certification apart from BS, then technically you are not qualified to practice in Ghana. But upon follow-up, what you are saying is you have to register with them. That is a whole controversial matter to be resolved. Having said that, I think the reason for going for certification goes beyond just the PHR or SPHR or IHR or whatever. It is more like, what does it give you as an organization? So what I would ask any employee or potential certificant to research is the company that you admire, find out which certification they also admire, and you get the answers. All the multinationals that we think are doing well in Ghana and we don't want to work for, just look at what certifications they are running. Because we are running at the corporate level, we are not of these multinationals.
Thank you very much, Kojo. Yes, so I go to Mark, and I was asking you to walk us through some areas of specialization in HR.
First of all, I know most of us will concur with me that HR have not been very good friends with anything arithmetic. I think I would suggest that it then behooves us as HR practitioners to do what you may call finance for non-finance managers. So much so that, as we have rightly pointed out with Ruth also echoing her sentiments on how we must speak business, we are not going to be able to speak business if we cannot translate that into numerical numbers. So HR practitioners must appreciate arithmetic and how that relates to their function. Another area of specialization that I know almost every other HR will be required to know is the question of HR analytics. If you don't understand analytics, then you'll not be able to actually sell your business case to the board or to the CEO if that doesn't boil down to numerical numbers, if it's organizational growth in terms of productivity. What percentages are you talking about? So we must be experts in HR analytics. Change management is very, very key. The pandemic has taught us that unless we are change experts, it becomes very difficult even to know how to manage employees when they are offsite. If we've dressed ourselves in straight jackets, that this is the only way we do it and there's no other, it will become very difficult for us to manage uncertain situations like the one we are in right now. The aspect of understanding reward, and like I said, most of us have been enemies of mathematics. So we need to train ourselves to understand reward so that then can we, for instance, go to the board and convince the board the adoption of certain reward and compensation strategies, the pros and cons of those reward strategies in an organization, if we are convincing management to adopt those reward and compensation strategies. But what is also very, very critical, and this comes out very, very strongly, Ruth and I have done CIPD, the aspect of being a business case expert. Business case expert then will mean that how do we communicate so effectively that we can say, we want to promote 1, 2, 3, 4 people for ABCD reasons, and this is what will be the outcome in terms of results. That's an area that we need to specialize on, because within the CIPD qualification, I'm an associate. I'm pursuing my membership now. You are required to write business cases in your HR practice. And incidentally, or rather unfortunately, when I was doing that exam, I had not done any business case. That was way back in 2014. So I think maybe that's why I didn't get the CIPD. I ended up getting the associate area. Then the idea of managing ambiguity. How do we identify those critical causes that, you know, can sharpen our skills and give us the necessary competencies on how we can manage ambiguity? That's very critical. Then I would finally end up by saying, if you pursue the CIPD course, and I'll seek Ruth's concurrence, there's something they call the HR map. That HR map tells you which competencies you must develop entirely as an all-round HR person. That will support you. I don't know what SHAM says, because I've never certified myself within the SHAM area. And then more importantly, invest in knowledge. Invest in knowledge, invest in memberships. I've been a member of SHAM by payment or by paying my yearly fees. And then be a friend to Dave Ulrich. He talks about all the HR you want to know. And there's a small book which he calls HR Competencies. I think it's about 200 pages. It tells you every other competence you need to develop, which courses you must attend, what behaviors must you embrace to be an all-round HR manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. We're trying to gradually come to a close. I believe that there are more questions that we would have. We will continue on the platform, engage us as much as possible. We will be bringing Ruth also onto the network so that if you have any questions regarding other aspects that we have been touched on, you can just post and she will answer. But we do know that this conversation can go on and on and on. Yeah. Now, Jeff, you being in structural design and also understanding how to deal with clients, what other areas of specialization do you think are available to young professionals?
Thank you very much. I think that being that we're from developing countries, I think anything to do with capacity development is absolutely key, right? There's so many fields that kind of span the range of learning and development and fall within that massive scope of capacity development. I would say that, if I have your permission, I would say that we recently had a program and I did a gauge, and I realized that we do have a lot of talent in the area of training, but we don't have enough talent in the area of building that training, right? And it's very important that we develop that capacity, because you have a lot of organizations like USAID, all these government agencies. Why do they have to build their programs from outside and bring them in? There's need for local context. And so if we start building that capacity internally, then we can grow the capability to really grow and expand even beyond the scope of the African world.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Ruth, now I want to actualize myself in HR. So what do you think are some of the things that I need to do so I can actualize myself? You know, Maslow's theory is there. self-actualization. I know the food is not enough, but I can fast, some of the days and manage the security and all that. But I want to be able to actualize myself. The whole point of this discussion is that young professional will equip his or herself with the tips needed, but the ultimate goal is to actualize. Yeah. So, Ruth, if you are still with us, if you can give us some tips on that.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. I think the most important thing I would say to young professionals, do you be yourself. We spoke about identifying your strengths. People will inspire you, but you need to be yourself, because the minute you try to be somebody else, it becomes a struggle. So my guiding principle is do you, and actualizing yourself within the system. Have a personal brand that when they mention Emma, when they mention Kojo, when they mention Mark, when they mention Ruth, one thing comes to mind. So project yourself with what you're good at within your environment. It doesn't matter how small it is. One of your strengths might be that you relate very well to people. Oh, do you know Mark? He always has a smile on his face. Anytime you have a problem, analytical problem, he will help you solve it. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. That way, you are building your personal brand within your environment, within your organization, and outside as well. The second thing is networking, and we talk so much about networking. It's not just what you can get from people, but it's also what you can give to people. Like I said, if your personal brand is known and you make people aware of it, when people need something, a friend will talk to a friend, another friend will talk to a friend, and word goes on. Within your organization, people start approaching you to solve certain problems. I think it was Kojo that mentioned that when people called him, they called him with HR issues, So it's about that personal branding and making clear what you stand for and what your strengths are, and making people know what your strengths and what you can do to support them and be productive and impactful. The word is impactful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. We will take some final words from Kojo.
Actualization is different from non-actualization. So when I was saying to all our aspects, put myself where I am today and define your actualization. And then everything you said, fit into that path. And you have to have I mean, we don't call it politics, we call it navigating the organization. How do you bring to the leadership to recognize and target that? So,
thank you so much, Kojo. Make it purposeful to get there. We will take some final words from Emma. There's a question I'll be asking Mark. So Mark, I'll take you last. Yes, Emma.
From my experience, especially in this part of the world, it is not easy for many employers to understand the decisions that we make. Sometimes they feel like as if we are tilted more towards the employees than that. But there's one thing that told me a long time ago, I will share. So anytime you try to make peace with employees, for the sake of management. Because the moment there is no dispute, employees have the peace of mind to be more creative. because of the organization. But then, so as an HR person, you learn how to be confident, keep your integrity, try to communicate what you're trying. Sometimes at the first glance they don't accept it, but then once you make sure you stand no, and then you try to ensure that they understand what you're trying to say, it makes it easy for them to be a buy-in. So try as much as possible to also live outside the box. Some of the HR people are so comfortable where we are. Learn, and learn. Learn, not learn, and relearn. And we get there.
Thank you very much, Emma. Jack?
Some final words, right? I know in the interest of time, but I really have to say this. Invest in yourself. Participate in your own rescue. Believe me, look, I look at myself and I look at how much time I invest in myself, and it's gradually starting to pay off. So all I'm going to say is, we've all talked about being known for what you know, but being known should not only be in words. Being known also should reflect in the work that you do. People need to say, hey, this person is the best graphic designer, let's go see this person. So all I want to say is, make sure you invest in yourself, take time, study your craft, and make sure you exhibit it when the time comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. So, Mark, you did mention a book, and someone is asking, what's the title of the book?
Sorry, Cynthia, I was asking, am I the last speaker? Because I have to check, I have to go to my library and share one or two of them.
Okay, so you need to look for it. Okay,
no, yeah, it take me like 2 minutes. Ask another, let people make contributions, then I'll come and share that immediately.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Lost sound.
And HR's role as a strategic business partner. I think any of us can just say that.
Okay, looks like senior colleague is definitely the most strategic person here, but I can take this. What you see, the way I look at it is the HR role is definitely the side of HR really related to transactional. What do I mean here? Everything we do as HR people must lead to connecting the dots across the organization and tying long-term into the overarching organizational strategy. So basically, if you want to stay in your silos, you're going to end up being a transactional HR person. You're going to be a back office HR person. But if you map what you do every day to how it affects your department, how it affects your organization, and how it ultimately impacts the bottom line, right, then you become more strategic. So that's what I'm saying.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and you are right on point. Mark, do you have the title now?
Yes, I'm back. The book is called HR Competencies, Mastery written by Dave Ulrich, Wayne Brockbank, Danny Johnson, Kat Sandowitz, and John Younger. That's the cover.
Okay, so Mark, what I'll have you do is you will share that on the WhatsApp so that any other person who wants to get a look can do that. Any persons who want to buy the book can also do that. So it's a book on HR competencies. It's almost 210 or so pages. It's written by David Ulrich. And anyone who wants to read and understand the competency investigation can do that. So at this point, I think we have exhausted the questions on the platform. With regards to the certification as well, I can see that put that information for you. There's information on how those of you who follow our friends in the UK for strength. Now focus on building your strength and not focus on your weakness. And they develop HR research. Now, I will ask you, no, I think my answer is right, which was the business questions. So we will be bringing those to wrap, and I think we'll more. We have understood that HR has very significant role to play in terms of business survival. And so as HR practitioners, we need to have ourselves the right skill set to be able to deliver and be relevant to business. That CEOs are looking for individuals that understand the bottom line. And to understand the bottom line means you understand the when they project the financial statement, they start talking about turnover and its effect on the items. We want to be able to defend the figures we put out for the next year's payment. Let's not throw in 100,000 because we think that is what we need to pay the consultant. But at the end of the day, does that 100,000 translate for the profit of the business? That is the focus of the CEO. Because he intends to explain to the shareholders why we are investing that much in our human capital. And it is your job as the HR person to present that information to them. Also understood when you said, which is something profoundly in and being echoed by Carl Harris, who mentions your name when you are not in that group. Mind you, all promotions are done when you're not. All salary increments are done when you're not there. The person to spearhead that project is done when you're not there. Now, do you have sponsors in the room that can mention your name? When I was looking for individuals to put on this panel, was like, now 510 human beings just on the platform without going external. It has to be okay. This is the topic at hand. Who can speak to it? So these individuals were not of the room where the position has to be taken, but their names have to be put on the table. So as a young professional, my advice to you would be that ensure that whoever needs to know your name knows your name. I keep telling people, it is not who you know, it is who knows you. Don't get it twisted. It is not who you know, it is who knows you. Because you can actually be the president and you shake hands with him. If you left nothing on his mind, you will forget about you. But if there's an imprint of you on his mind, when that time comes, your name is the first that is run down. Don't shy away from opportunities. A lot of times I contact people, I want to bring them to their houses, and they start bragging. Even through the phone, I can actually tell how they are inspiring. Take opportunities when you are given. If you do not make yourself available, nobody gets to know you. There are 1,001 people we've brought to the last 2,001, I'm using the 10, that have brought to the platform who found new jobs, new opportunities, talent space, and everything you can possibly think of, only because they took the stand for people to get to know them. So as young professionals, take that stand when you're giving yours. Prepare, and plan your schedule. You've been told 70% is wrong. So don't sit down and say, I'm going to do this in an organization. What do you do? At the end of the day, what do you do? And so these are the things that we want to actually leave you with. We are so sorry we've gone way beyond our time. I understand that my voice is very low. I hope you can hear me now. Can you please hear me? It is not. Right. Okay, so well, I know at one point you lost me, but I'm sure the recording will be available for you to listen. But I was just simply touching base on the tables by far, where I was saying that you should ensure that your name is mentioned when you're not in the room. As a young professional, take advantage of all the opportunities that will be thrown at you. Be sure to excel, seek excellence in everything that you do. That's what we're trying to tell you the whole time. When you are given an opportunity, make use of it and excel. So officially, we want to say thank you on behalf of the network, on behalf of my team. We want to appreciate you for your time. Thank you so much for joining us from Kenya. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us from the UK. We have members from Norway, and Ceci joining us from Norway. I saw Ibra is joining all the way from Afghan. Thank you so much. Thank you, every other person that joined. I don't have the full list here, but we have membership from Nigeria. I think I saw Carlos. He's from Cameroon. Damaris is also from Cameroon. There's Ado from Niger. Thank you for joining us. We are grateful for your time. Irrespective of what time it is in your counties, you actually start out together. So some of you are at 2 a.m., and so we don't want to go on further. But thank you for making HR Connect 2020 a success. God bless you all. And so in wrapping up, we will say, I am a personal practitioner. And what do I do? I change lives. As you go out there, touch every life and change lives as you move along. Thank you, and God bless you all. Have a very good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.